Welcome back to Light Talk, where everyone can be themselves and tell their own unique paranormal and spiritual experiences with a safe and supportive community. If you have a story you would like to share, email me at lighttalk423@gmail.com. And while you're at it, click on the like, share, and subscribe buttons. We have a very awesome guest for you today. I'm excited to have her on the show. So let's welcome her and we'll hand the mic over to you. So go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. I'm Camille James Harman, and I live in Los Angeles. And I started having paranormal experiences in 1995 when I was about 29 years old. So that's the story I'm going to tell from back then through the present. And it was pretty life-changing. So, yeah, and disruptive, but there's some good parts, there's some bad parts, but yeah, that's when it started. Okay.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. Um, yeah, let's go ahead and start from the very beginning and just kind of give us an idea of where you've been and bring us up to kind of where you are now.
Okay. Well, I am 58 years old as of right now, and this all started back when I was 29 years old. So, I was living in Los Angeles after recently moving to New Orleans. So I have to back up just a teeny bit because when I was still living in New Orleans at the very, very end of that time period, when I was a very successful actress in New Orleans, I was going to grad school. I had just gotten my master's in theater. I had my SAG card. I had all these credits, and I was ready to move to LA and be a big star, right? So I was moving with my boyfriend, who was also a big actor in town. And we were excited, but I was kind of sad because I had such a fun life in New Orleans. And oh well, goodbye. Now LA, it's crazy town here. So we packed up the U-Haul and our dog, and we moved to LA in September of 95. And right before that, I had recently read this Whitley Strieber book, which was the catalyst of this whole thing. I really believe that book catalyzed this whole adventure with what we call aliens, for lack of a better term. I like to call them non-human intelligences, which is the current phrase, NHI. I think it's more broad and inclusive of other possibilities. But back in the day, I felt compelled to buy this hardcover Whitley Strieber book, and it came out that year, and I barely knew about him. I had seen the movie Communion, but this book was, I believe it was called Breakthrough or Transformation. I think Breakthrough, and it was silver and blue cover with the alien face, and I just grabbed it and bought it. I thought, oh my gosh, this guy, he's still writing about aliens. Like, I wonder what he knows now, because it intrigued my interest back in the 80s. And so I read the book and I was blown away. Like, the whole subject was covered, the military, all of that. And I was like, oh my God, this is going on the planet. Like, this is the most important thing I've ever read. And so when we got to LA, everything was going for us. I had my agent and my we had a good day job that we got together at this place through friends. He had a lot of friends there. We made instant friends with them, and we had this cool house to rent, and everything was going well. I was auditioning, but I started having all this anxiety, and um, by December, I noticed, well, before then, but I had no menstrual cycle for like the time I moved there until January the following year. And I thought that was pretty weird. And I was taking the pill at the time, but I just never went to the drugstore and got a test. Like, who does that? Who waits that long to go get a test, right? That's in my normal life, I would just go to Walgreens to get a test. And I'd never been pregnant before. And, going on this long, I thought, this is pretty weird, but I didn't go get a test. But I had all these weird symptoms that later on, when I became pregnant with my son, I recognized were like pregnancy symptoms. And I had a very weird event in December, where we saw a UFO while we were walking our dog in the daylight, broad daylight sighting over LA. And I ran home. It was like a triangle, possibly. It was very high, so it was hard to make out the shape, but it was like a dark thing that was not moving, and it had a shimmer around it, and it was really, really high, and it didn't make any noise. And we looked at each other because he was kind of teasing me, like, "Oh, you and your UFO book, what if it's a UFO?" We looked back, and it was gone. And we were on this huge hill where we could have seen it. Like if it was a helicopter and it just moved over a little bit, we would have seen it because we had this palm tree for reference, and it was not moving. And then we looked at each other, and then we looked back, and it was gone. So I got all excited, and I ran home to report it. And I found out about MUFON meetings and started going to MUFON meetings in January after that. So, but in the meantime, during this December 1995 timeframe, I also had this weird experience in bed of sleep paralysis. And I know a lot of people are familiar with that. It's something that happens often with people that wake up in the night and you feel like you can't move and you have a lot of fear, and it kind of comes out eventually. You melt out of it, I call it. You kind of like start screaming or move a pinky or something, and you come out of it. But very often there people report feeling there's a presence, a negative presence in the room or something. In my case, this happened twice in one night. Once when he was in the living room watching a movie, and once later in the night when he was in the bed with me. And when it happened, it was so weird because even though I'd had that happen in my life a few times before, it wasn't ever that scary. This particular night,
Oh, wow.
while I was in this state, I heard this voice call my name, like a electronic sounding robot voice.
Huh.
And it sounded like it was right next to my, I was sleeping on the left side of the bed, so like right next to me. And it just sounded like it said my name, like Camille, like that. And at the same time, I had this flash of a gun pointed right in my face. It was real quick. It was just like, the heck? I've never had that experience of being paralyzed while I had an oral and a visual hallucination or vision or whatever you want to call it. It was too much. So that January, my menstrual cycle came back. I just went on with life. And I started going to the MUFON meetings, and I heard this talk by Kim Carlsberg, who wrote a book called Beyond My Wildest Dreams. And she was in the entertainment industry as a set photographer for Baywatch. And she was dating, I think, the director or the producer of Baywatch, and they were living together. And she started getting abducted by aliens like Whitley Strieber and having very traumatizing events. Um, and also events where she seemed to be, involved with military aspects of this phenomenon, which is also very common. Very
Yeah.
wild book, great illustrations if you want to get it. It may be out of print, it may be hard to find, but it's really good. And Daryl Anka, who channels Bashar, who's a very popular
Yeah.
person, he did the illustrations for her book. Anyway, the two
Oh,
of them
wow.
spoke together, and I was like, "Oh my God, this poor lady!" And I felt like in the meeting, I thought, "Oh my." I was like, I think I am one of these people. And I was really upset and kind of shaking. And I went to the back of the room where she had her book for sale, and I was flipping through the back. There's like a checklist. You might have been abducted if you got this and all these things. And I, I was like, I think I have like 85% of these symptoms. And
Oh, my.
what do I do? And, and I was introduced at MUFON to Barbara Lamb, who is a very famous hypnotherapist for this subject matter, who works with people, and she's written books, and she's a crop circle expert. And we became friends, and I started going to her. I had my first regression. I think it was April of 96. And we targeted a couple things, but one of them obviously was that night when I had all that with the robot voice and the whole thing with the sleep paralysis. And I had this full on alien abduction memory. I mean, NHI, whatever you want to say they are, I don't know, but they're beings, and they had me, and they took me out of my bed in a beam of blue light. And all I knew was I curled up in this fetal position. I went in this blue beam of light, like a shaft of light up through my ceiling. And then the next thing I knew, I never saw a spaceship, but next thing I knew, I'm in a white, misty room with no walls, nothing. Just, I can't see anything but a white mistiness, and I'm on a table flat. and there are beings staring at me. And I will show you the beings. Here they are. Hold on a second. And I did a little drawing. And okay, hold on. There they are. Ta-da.
There you go.
All right. I don't know how many there were. I I remember they had the big black eyes, they had white robes, they had long arms, they had the high collar, and they had some kind of triangle circle emblem thing right at their chest. And they were telepathically telling me to that it's okay, and that Barbara asked me, "What do they want?" And I said, "I have a baby and they want it." And then this other being I could not see came between my legs, down by my feet on the table. I couldn't see that being, though. I was blocked. And I got hysterical, and my knees started opening, and nobody was touching them. That's what made me hysterical. And Barbara said, "You can remember this from above if you would like to go above your body and remember it." And I thought, well, that's cool. Let's try that. So I did that. And then this being like quickly put this, I had a flash of an instrument, like a gynecological speculum type thing. It looked like an egg whisk, but it had thicker slats. It had some kind of a crank. And this being put that thing in me and very quickly withdrew it and had this something, some little something in there that was like a very tiny fetus. And and he walked out of the room with it, and I was just like, oh my God, like I didn't even get to see it. I was hysterical crying and screaming. And I always say that the emotional intensity of that memory was so crazy. Um, I just, I feel like, did it stop sharing?
Yeah. Very good.
Okay. I felt like this has to be real because I've never had anything this emotional happen in my life. And it just feels like it was real. And it made sense with my body at the time. And,
Yeah.
and so that was my, grand entrance into the world of alien abduction, whatever that is. And, um, I went home with this. She was doing cassettes back then, and she would give you the cassette and talk to you, and then you'd leave and you'd go home, and you're like, my whole life has changed now, and what do I do? And so I played it for my boyfriend, and he was not happy. I mean, to him, he was, you know, didn't know what to think. I mean, who wants to hear that? And the girlfriend, we've been together for years, and just the shock and like if this is real, then this is really bad. And if it's not real, it's really bad too, because then my girlfriend is delusional or tricked or crazy. Yeah, it was just bad. And it took over my life. And so I became obsessed with going to UFO meetings and reading books and then it happened again. Okay. So, very shortly after in 1996, I had an experience where Eric was out of town. My boyfriend was back in New Orleans filming a show for a week. So, I was alone, sleeping. And I woke up 3 mornings in a row at 3 a.m., 4 a.m. sharp with my digital clock. Back in the day, no cell phones, right? We had the 400, and I was looking at it, waking up like, why am I awake? I didn't hear a noise. And once it's 3 mornings in a row at the same exact time, then you get like, okay, what's going on?
Yeah.
And that third morning, I went to shave and I saw this fresh wounded, I call it a triangular array of pinpricks on my calf that were freshly crusted over with, fresh blood, like three little pinpricks in a triangle, okay, on my leg.
Oh,
And I thought,
wow.
I have seen that. That is some alien thing. I saw it in a book or a show because I was binge watching all the shows, like, The Learning
Yeah.
and all those Discovery, whatever, all those, they all had these shows on back then. And I found it in a book and I said, that's what I had on my leg. Oh my God. And I went to a different therapist this time. I just was experimenting. And there
Hmm.
was another therapist, Yvonne Smith, in the area who did regression. So I went to her just to see what it was like. And she was great too. And I still go to her. Barbara's semi-retired. She's getting up there now, and she moved to San Diego, but Yvonne is still in the area. She's in the Pasadena area. And I got aliens again. Only this time I got the blue beam and I went out the window instead of straight up, which was interesting. And
Yeah.
I came to in a room. on the table, never saw a spaceship. And this time there was no mist. It was more like a exam room. Like I had the sense that there were walls and cabinets, and like a regular exam room. But
Right.
there were these small beings that had wrinkly heads that I could only see the top of their heads. They were really short. And they were either brown or gray, their tops of their heads. And I was really repulsed by them. And I remember they came close to me and I was crying and everything. And I had recently, I'd been a substitute teacher also as an actress, just one of my day jobs that I would have. And I had been surrounded by third graders who walked me over to this cabinet and they grabbed my arms and were leading me to this cabinet to get something out of it. And my whole body had this like cellular memory of being led by little things pulling my arms. But I mean, I kept my composure in class, obviously, but it was like, whoa, deja vu. So I yelled at the
Yeah.
beings and I said, "You make me scared of little kids, but you're not little kids." And I was mad. I was cussing at them. One of them comes up to my head right here and he puts his hand on my forehead and starts stroking me. And I'm like, "Get your freaking hands off me." And I'm cussing it out. But as soon as it started doing that, I just felt sedated. Like it melted my anger and panic away and I was able to calm down. And I said,
Oh, wow.
just do what you have to do and let me go home. And I was crying softly, but I wasn't like screaming, cussing, and all that. And then this tall one at my feet, I have a picture too of this. The tall one at my feet, let's see if I can get to it without drama. Um, they're stacked and I can't see them. Hold on. The tall one at my
There.
feet, hold on. It's not that one. Not that one. Oh, I can't find it. I think I lost it. Um, anyway, I'll show you something else later. So the tall one at my feet he was white. I say he, I call him all he. I don't know why. This one was white with the big black wraparound eyes and the white robes and the high collar. And this one seemed taller than the ones before, the little ones that were all in a row. They weren't that little. They were
Uh-huh.
tall too, but they were skinny. It was hard to tell how tall they are. It was all misty. Anyway, he's the one who actually grabbed the thing from the ceiling. There was like a rack and a wand kind of a thing that came out of the ceiling, and he put this tip on the wand and kind of like popped it in my leg real quick. And I didn't get anything telepathic. I don't know what that was. I don't know if it was a vaccination or a test or just a mark or I don't know what it was, but that's what the procedure was like. It was very simple. And I do remember fixating on its hands. I thought its hands were very beautiful, long, long white fingers. And I also looked at its head, and at one point it had antenna, which kind of freaked me out. And I was like, no, he looks like a big praying mantis, And so it might have morphed
Could
or
have been.
like, these things you don't know because there's all these different kinds, and you don't
Right.
know if they're presenting as their normal form or they're cloaking in some other form, or if it's your mind, classifying things in different things. Like you don't know like what's real. You don't know what's real. But when you wake up with these marks on your body and then you have these super emotional memories, it feels real, but I'm willing to be proven wrong. I mean, I still don't know what this is. I don't know if it's really aliens. I don't know if they're under the ocean, interdimensional, MK Ultra, CIA mind control tricks. I don't know what it is. I just know I had marks on my body and I had all these traumatizing weird things. So that was that. Um, and then I'm just trying to move along because there's so many. I'll try to quickly get to them. So the next thing that happened is my dentist found this weird thing in my tooth. And I had told my dentist, I said, I'm, an abductee. I'm doing some therapy, reading books. And I've read that a lot of times abductees can freak out at the dentist office because they have flashbacks and they don't know they're having like a memory. And I said, I've never freaked out at the dentist. I'm telling you now, but if I do, or anyone else does, it could be that. And I said, and if you ever find anything weird in my body, you have to tell me. And my dentist was like, okay, I did read about Roswell, so good to know. Okay. And then he finds this weird thing in my tooth, and
Oh my goodness.
I know I had all my fillings changed. Here's my X-ray. I'll share it. I had okay, so this, and then I go, hold on, this, share. Okay, this share. And I have to drag it up.
Yep.
Here it comes. All right. So there it is. All right.
There it is.
He had changed all my fillings to the white ones, okay, because they were mercury. And I wanted the pretty mouth, I was an actress, right? So he changed all my fillings and I loved them, except this one was hurting me. They were all great except this one. It was in my left molar right here. So I went back and I said, they're all great, but this one hurts. So he said, give it a couple of months, come back. So I came back and he said, well, the seal is good. He said, I can dig it out and redo it and I'll use a different brand. And I said, okay. So he dug it out and he hit this like charcoal gray. He called it a charcoal gray spherical object or half spherical, and he wrote me a whole letter about it for a TV show later when I asked him. But he said this is so hard. He said, "Let me show you." Got out a mirror. He goes, he said, "You see this thing?" He tapped on it. He goes, "I've been drilling and drilling on this. I don't know what it is. It's not your old filling. It wasn't there before when I did this filling. And what do you want me to do?" I said, "I don't know. Just fill it." And I said, "Can you get me a piece of it?" And he said, "No, it's too hard. I have to keep the water going, and it's dust. It's going
Oh
down
my
the drain."
goodness.
And I said, "You can't get a chunk." I was upset. I said, just, you know." And he had to keep giving me shots too. And I said, "Just fill it up again, and I'll think about it." Like Scarlett O'Hara, "I'll think about that tomorrow." It's like I can't decide that right now. So if you look in this X-ray, there's this very slight dome
Yeah.
shape here. Okay. And
Right.
this is the new filling. These are all fillings, all this stuff. But this little dome, very slight, is what I believe is left of it. And uh, anyway, I did a regression on that with Barbara Lamb. I went back to Barbara. Okay. I'm going to take the share off. Hold on. I went back to Barbara and hold on. Oh my gosh. I'm so slow at technology. Okay. The stop.
It's
Did
all
it stop?
good.
Did it
Nope.
stop? No. Okay. There's a thing I have to press. Hold on. Ah, stop share. I don't see my stop share. That's why I'm panicking. Hold on.
There you
It's
go.
not popping up. Did it stop?
Nope. It's still there, but I see the coloring where you've been clicking on now.
Okay.
Now it
Just
disappeared.
gonna close it.
There you go.
Did it stop?
There you go. Yep.
Golly. All right. Anyway, next thing. Okay, so I go to this regression with Barbara Lamb, and I get this whole what they call a MILAB or MILAB memory, which stands for military abduction. And you can look those up, MILAB. It's an acronym. And so what I remember was there was no beam of light. I just remember being in this room. It was like a regular exam room. I was on a table. I felt drugged. I did not feel hyper alert like with the beings. I felt drugged. And I remember these two men in white lab coats with khaki pants, like dress pants, like the Navy wears, just saying, and black shiny shoes. And they were in there and they had me on a table and they put one of them took a syringe and squirted it through my jaw like this, not like a dentist would go in and do something through your mouth, but like this way, and called me a troublemaker. That's what I remember. That's all I remember. They put me on a gurney, rolled me down a hall, and then I went into this big hangar where there was a black helicopter. I know it sounds really cliche, but that's what I remember. And they put me in that, and the ceiling opened up, and it was super bright. And they brought me home to my neighborhood in Silver Lake, which was a neighborhood in Los Angeles where I was living, where all this happened. And they said, go home and take a nap. So I don't remember getting home. I don't remember getting there. That's all I remembered. And I was so freaked out when I came out of that hypnosis. And Barbara was freaked out. That was the first military abduction memory she had had with a client. She had heard of that, but she had not had one come up in a session. And when she went to give me my recording, the recording didn't work. It didn't record, which is really
Oh
annoying.
no.
I like making transcripts of everything. And
Right.
I don't have that. I can't listen to it again. I don't have I don't know, but that's what I remember. So then I was really paranoid. Like, if that was real, that's really bad. And that's got me so angry at my own species. Like, what is going on? And it's so unnerving because then you start thinking, like, if I didn't remember that and that was real, what else has happened that I don't remember? And how might that be affecting me subconsciously? Like, I don't
Right.
know. You read these horror
Right.
stories about that, people getting, tased and raped and everything else. And I don't know. Thank God I don't have any memories like that, but it just makes you paranoid. So, okay, that was enough of that. So
Yeah.
all bad stuff. Now I'm going to get to the good stuff. There is good stuff, believe it or not. So I found myself um, going to conferences, doing all these things. I ended up having these feelings like I would catch myself saying, "Oh, humans," and I I thought, why am I talking like I'm not a human? Like what's up with that? So I went to Barbara and I said, can we target something kind of abstract? Like, why do I feel like I miss some beings? Does that make sense? Like, I miss some beings, but I don't know who. And I don't think it's
Yeah.
a one to have me on the table. And can we target that? And she said, yeah. So I go in, she puts me under hypnosis, and I have this full on out of body experience. Wild under hypnosis, which was like a near death experience, but I was not near death. But it was amazing. And what I remember is first, I felt super paranoid and claustrophobic. Like I was screaming things like, I don't want to be in this body. It's so weak. Just feeling like, ah. And she said, well, go to when you felt good. And I went and instantly I'm like out and I'm free and I'm in space or the void or some blackness. Okay.
That's
And
beautiful up there, isn't it?
yeah, it was like, whoa. And I was a blue sphere. I was like this blue light. And I didn't have arms or legs or anything. I was just blue. And I looked over and I saw two more spheres. They were my friends, John and Nicole. I was like, no, John and Nicole. I'm crying, I'm all ecstatic. But then I look at Earth, and Earth was spinning in my memory. And so for the flat earthers, I don't know if it was a trick, but it was a globe and it was spinning. I always say that. I love the flat earthers. I find it very intriguing, actually, flat Earth. Anyway, so it was spinning, and I didn't want to go, and I was crying, and I was saying, I don't want to go to Earth. It was like being on a diving board and like really afraid. And Barbara was getting me through all this, and she said, "Well, why do you have to go to Earth?" And I said, "I don't know." And she said, "Well, ask someone." So these white light beings appear, and I'm merging with them and I'm crying and I'm like, they're my family and they're my home. And that's why I wear a white bathrobe. And I'm just hysterically happy and ecstatic to merge with these other beings that were bigger than us and that had some kind of arms and legs and a head. They had some kind of human shape in the whiteness.
Okay.
And I
Yeah.
was so happy. I was so happy with them. And and they gave me all these wonderful messages and they said, you have to go to Earth to fight evil. And I was like, oh God, okay. Like, what do I do? And they
Yeah.
they said you're still supposed to act, and I was like, really? Because Hollywood doesn't make whatever you think that's it, and they're like, yeah, and I said, well, am I supposed to lecture about you? And they said, tell people we exist and we love them, and they gave me this image of light coming through them and coming out their hands at us, like they're always pointing love at us, but we're running around with umbrellas, and they said we're always trying, we're always here doing this and to tell them that. And I said, okay. And they said, but the acting, they said, don't worry, we will set it up so that you meet people and make projects worthy of your time. And I said, oh, please do that. That'd be amazing. And so the next film I did was about an angelic encounter. And then I did a couple of things later in my career, like the movie Vice out here that I did, which won an Oscar, which was about Dick Cheney. So I consider that, you know, being in a film that is about fighting evil. Sorry, that's the right thing. And but not everything I've done is along those lines. Certainly not when I was in Shameless, or maybe I don't know, but I don't do everything like pure and wonderful and loving and all that. So anyway, so that
Acting.
was that was a good memory of being with those white light beings and feeling like I came from that.
Yeah.
And um and I do feel like I'm on a mission to act and to use my voice. I'm very extroverted, so I'll do podcasts, I'll do public speaking, I've done a lot of great adventures. Like I went to Roswell, and I did the 40th anniversary. I have another picture to show you guys. Okay, so on the way home from Roswell, I met I I went with this guy who had a great camera, and we went to White Sands. So can you see this White Sands picture? Okay. So we went to White Sands. This is one of two pictures, but here's one of them at least. And can you see that?
Yep. Got it.
Okay. So he said, why don't you draw a picture of an alien face with your foot? And so I did that. See my alien face, and I was yelling at the sky like, "I dare you to come down here, you bastards!" I was just being really goofy in this place. And and later when we got the film developed, there were these weird squigglies where I was looking, and it happened in two pictures. That's one of them. It happened in another one too. So that was fun.
So
So
just
I
above your hand there,
yeah, like see my
your
face
head?
looking up, and there's
Yeah.
this wiggly thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
so that was kind of cool, and it happened in another one too. Um, so that's fun. Like I have a lot of photos of UFOs that I've taken where I didn't see anything in the sky at the time, but they show up in my pictures. So I have a lot of those actually,
Wow.
and I take pictures of a lot of my marks too. I have a lot of pictures I can do in other shows and PowerPoints and things. Um, but so I just wanted to let people know that there are good beings out there, what I call angelic beings or high frequency beings of some kind. I mean, you learn, I did go through this period where I went back to church in 2012, 2013-ish. I I just had this, I was writing my book, which I haven't finished yet. But I got to this point at the end where I was like, I don't know what it is. I still don't know. And I was like, God, just help me understand what this is so I can move on with my life. I don't want to lead anyone astray.
Right.
And these books come my way, like Gray Aliens and the Harvesting of Souls by Nigel Kerner was one of them. And other books, they kind of opened my eyes to this more spiritual view of it. Like, what if these are just angelic and demonic beings of some kind? And so I had this full on like born again experience, like weeping and contrition and like, oh my God, I've been wasting my time on aliens and it's all demonic and angelic. Like I feel like an idiot. And I just went immersed into Catholicism and I went to Latin Mass for 9 years with the veil and the Gregorian chant. And I was in heaven and I was so happy and I didn't go to anything UFO. And then around 2022, I started being pulled back into the UFO news because so much was coming out that for me was kind of pulling me out of that perspective a little bit. Like I got curious again.
Right.
And I was, you know what? I
Mhm.
don't think it's that simple. I think that's a part of it. I do. I do think it's very biblical. I think that the biblical stories we read were people dealing with angelic and demonic beings, and some of them were in UFOs, good and bad experiences in the Bible. So um, I'm still deciding what I think this is. I'm open-minded about it. Um, but I do feel very protected, like the bad things aren't coming. I went to a lot of people for healings too, and they did things to make it stop. Like one lady prayed over me and removed any contracts I had made with the beings. Like it's not happening anymore. Okay. So I haven't had anything happen since the mid 90s, hardly at all. Nothing scary like that. No paralysis on the
Yeah.
table, all that. So, but I'm open-minded and I'm not, I'm still listening to other people's explanations and all that. I'm really into Diana Pasulka, actually. She's a Catholic theologian who writes about alien abduction and finds a lot of parallels to the mystical experiences of the saints, actually.
Oh,
So,
wow.
yeah, it's really good stuff.
Yeah.
Look up Diane, D.W. Pasulka. You can look her up. She's all over X and everybody's podcasts, and she's written a bunch of books about this. So, yeah, she's interesting. And I'm married to an astrologer, which is interesting when you're Latin Mass Catholic. That was challenging for us. Um, I mean, I still go to Mass, but I'm not super like, hardcore like I was trying to be, I was
Right.
not, I was not really good at it, but I thought it was very beautiful and lovely. And I believe a lot of it. I just have issues with a lot of things, but I still go, just not every
Yeah.
week. Um,
Yeah.
and my my husband has had UFO experiences and possible abductions. He's had beings scanning him, and he's heard their voices scanning him, talking about what he eats while he's looking at a UFO, things like that. Um,
Wow.
I went to England to see the crop circles. That was amazing. I think those are made by good beings, the crop circles. Some of them, the ones that aren't fake. And I'm super curious. So I started doing the public speaking again and the podcast. I don't have my own. I'm a guest on people's shows and um, going to conferences and speaking at conferences and doing documentaries with people and all that. I'm also in this group called Hollywood Disclosure Alliance, which is really cool because it's a networking group for Hollywood people to know who's who in the Hollywood and UFO crossover business so that we can make
Oh,
stuff.
wow.
It's new. And we had a meeting last weekend with Stephen Bassett, who's a UFO activist who lives in Washington. And he is there at all those congressional hearings, pushing for disclosure all these years. And we're finally getting somewhere. It's really exciting. I think this administration is going to be the disclosure administration. I have very high hopes. So
Awesome.
I I just want people to know that it is very complex and fascinating, and there's some amazing minds working on this. Um, Great researchers like Jacques Vallée, Diana Pasulka, great experiencers too. Dr. Gary Nolan, who's a scientist who studies injuries to people that have had UFO encounters. He's at Stanford. He's also an experiencer. Uh, Jack Sarfati, the physicist, Chris Bledsoe, the experiencer, who's a friend of mine that I'm going to go to a conference he's speaking at, two conferences he's speaking at in May. Um, so there's so many voices in this field that have a lot of wisdom and knowledge and experiences to share with people. And there are tons of books. I would say follow me on X, Camille_Harman. And I love the conversation on X about UFOs. There's so many great shows and people out there posting news. So I hopefully will finish my book at the end of the year. It's a crazy spring, but maybe this summer I'll start working on it. And maybe I'll have a better answer at the end of the book then. I don't know what it is. But even if I don't know yet, my friends are all like, why do you think you're going to know? Like, just write the book. You don't have to know.
Yeah.
And if you want to do a second edition or write another book later, you're like, just get this first book written for goodness sake. So, yeah.
Oh, that will be amazing to hear the story. I mean, you have to let me know when the book is out because that'll be awesome to read.
Yeah. Well, there's so many abductee books out there. Um, and we're all pieces of the puzzle, it's a big puzzle we're all trying to figure out. I do think that disclosure is imminent and something going on with the beings is imminent. Like it's their move. There's stuff going on, right? It's not, we can't sit on this any longer. We've got
Right.
too much at stake. And I think that the beings have been working on people to prepare for this time. And I always say when I'm in my support group meetings and things with people, like I'm 58, a lot of us are at the age now where we are at the age of authority, shall we say. And I think these beings know the future. And so they've prepared a bunch of us to be useful in this time frame for disclosure to happen. And then people like me can be assisting the normies with, this whole field and what brought us to this point. And the trickiest thing right now is discernment, spiritual discernment and political discernment and understanding like if there is a reveal, is that reveal the actual truth or is it just some, CIA talking point they want us to believe and it's not really the truth? Like we hopefully are going to be getting the real truth, not some kind of packaged safe, or we don't want to be like coerced into panicking and thinking we have to go to war with the aliens, or we don't want to be naive and think, like since we don't really know what's going on, since there's so many varieties of experience, it's a little
Right.
hard to trust anything that comes out from the government because, well, first of all, they've committed so many crimes over the years um, against abductees and people who were trying to talk about it. People have been killed, and they've been doing illegal things to abductees. So there's that. But like, why would we trust them with with anything?
Right.
Been
Right.
lying for
And
so long.
and I believe I have been abducted myself. I
Hmm.
just don't know. I haven't been hypnotized or anything to even know what really happened, but I have a lot of missing time in my life. And one that was like 45 to an hour, maybe even longer time. And I've been paralyzed. I've been able to see them. At one point, I saw six of them. And I can only think that they're the grace,
Mhm.
but I believe that they were protecting me and
Yeah, some
seeing them in
people
my house.
feel
Yeah.
that way. Some people say once you get past the fear, and I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, okay, hot shot. Yeah, good for you. So everybody is at different levels of fear versus trust versus, like, and you don't want to, I feel like immature sometimes because I have a fear-based reaction to a lot of what's happened to me. But it's the truth. I don't
Yeah.
feel super comfortable with them. And I do say, God, I'm willing to work with your angels. Those light beings were really cool and they can appear to me. But the other guys, about that.
Yeah.
That scared me. I don't want to have a heart attack. I don't want,
Right.
like, if things come in my dreams or in their UFO far away, I can handle that. But like full conscious experience, I don't know if I'm ready for that, you know, up
Bring
close,
it
like
on
there.
slowly or
Yeah,
something.
bring it on slowly so I don't have a heart attack.
Right. Yeah.
Serious, you know.
Yeah.
I
It's the
think
protection too.
it.
Getting your protection in there will bring in all the higher energy ones and not the lower ones so
That's
that
what they say.
you have a better, they say.
But then Padre Pio wrestled with demons, all his life, and he was a saint. Yeah, it's it's a mixed bag out there in the universe, but I do want to be brave. I don't want to be naive. I don't want to be, you know, it's a
Right.
complex thing for me, but I am
Yeah.
curious. I do want interactions with beings that are nice and helpful, not scary. I just want to,
Yeah.
it's like if I meet another being, I'm like, are you a friend of Jesus? Because if you're not, go in. I don't want you around me. Sorry. Seriously. I
Be
have
off
my,
on your own. Be off.
huh,
Be gone.
be gone. You have to go through the Jesus test.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, I'm so intrigued. I'm like you. I'm so intrigued with all of this stuff, and I'm really excited to like meet up with them. But like you're saying, it's like oh, let's kind of bring it on slowly, and let's work through this.
Yeah, I mean, some people are just more adventurous. Like I've tried to do things too. I've tried to be hypnotized to like find out more about this fetus they took, right?
Yeah.
That would be a grown person now if that person was alive and on a ship or whatever. And some people describe meeting their alien children, and I've
Mhm.
never remembered anything like that. I've tried to do a hypnosis, like, did I ever meet this alien child later? Can't get anything. So I don't know if it's because it never happened or because I'm just blocked. I wasn't ready to see that. But hypnosis is not. It's not like changing the channel on the TV. You can't just always get what you want. Sometimes you don't get anything. So, um,
Yeah.
you know, I'll just let my
Yeah.
life continue to unfold and see what happens.
Yeah. And that's where it is, you just got to be in the moment and let it happen. And that's going to tell your story.
So that's my story. My perspective changes over the years,
Mhm.
and I don't know. I'm very open-minded. Um, I'm willing to be proven wrong. You know, I just say, okay, well, here's my story, and we'll see what it means as things flesh out.
Right. Right. That's like me. I'm in the same shoes. Like these are my stories, whether they happened, whether they didn't, whether they're, I don't know. I mean, I don't know.
I know.
To
I
me,
just
they're truth,
I just want to be helpful in being a puzzle piece, and if we ever do get to some knowledge that is definitive, and there's not too much hard math or science involved, my brain can't do it. I would love to be useful, like as a teacher or some kind of person that, is helping people acclimate to all this.
Yeah, that would be great, wouldn't it?
I mean,
Have some sort of truth with it.
it could happen to be like useful in some capacity that, would be a cool job. I'd give up acting and be like the alien liaison to, I don't know,
Ooh.
to some people. Like, okay, listen, I used to be a teacher. I taught college, I taught school, I've taught a lot. So I could go back to
Yeah.
teacher mode if I
I
knew
was
what to
a
do.
I was a 1-year-old teacher for a while, so yeah, it was
Yeah.
fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, That's just so awesome. I just love these kind of stories, and I'm very curious about all of it as you are. It's like what really happened to me during those missing times. I thought for many years I was just sleeping at the wheel, and
You
now it's
so
like
look, a lot of people get abducted while driving. I've heard a lot of regressions of driving incidents.
I think that's when I was because so many times like I say, I think and I've fallen asleep at the wheel and I know nothing of what's going on. And then just all of a sudden I'm stopped at a light and it's like, okay, whoever's helping me, thank you for not letting
Yeah.
me go through the
No,
intersection.
I've
And
heard a lot of regressions of people that have been abducted while driving, and not only alone, but with
in the
other people
car,
in the car. Yeah, yeah,
wow.
it's wild.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy. And do they have do they seem different to the other people or were they all taken at the same time, these stories?
They were all taken at the same time usually, and
Okay.
but sometimes there'll be things like when they come back, they'll be in different positions in the car, or there'll be some evidence that things are not what they were, or they'll be in a there'll be a time gap. Like there, how could we have been gone for 5 hours when it was a 45-minute drive? Or they'll be going a different direction, or they'll be further down the road and they have no answer to how they got to that point down the road. So all kinds of interesting things, but it doesn't only happen to people alone in their car. It happens to a lot of times to more than one person in the car.
Yeah, because there's one time I was driving and I went to take it off the turn off and it's like wrong one. So I jumped back into my lane. I wasn't that far out. So I jumped back into my lane and looked behind me and there was a cop behind me. So it's like, who takes over the driving when you're gone? I mean, how do you know how that works?
I think they take the whole car.
And that's why I went off into the wrong thing because I was brought back at that point.
Well, they can
And then I
manipulate
was
time
confused.
too. So we don't know what it appears like to the other people not taken on the ground. I talked to a guy once who had a car sighting once, and he was in L.A., like busy L.A., not in the burbs, out in the city in the daylight, and he saw this huge UFO with his friend in the car going over like Inglewood, and he was looking at people in their cars, and the people in their cars were frozen. He said there was this one car though, there was a lady that was frozen in the front, but her daughter was in the back pointing and looking, and she wasn't frozen. So it's very weird, like the things people report, like who can see things and who can't. There must be some frequency that they can. I don't know how to explain it. It's very trippy though.
Yeah, I've heard of stories like that. It's mind boggling. It's mind boggling.
And oftentimes they'll react differently. Like this guy that told me the story, he said his friend, even though his friend admitted seeing it at the time, when they got back to where they were going, they were in a delivery truck. He was like, I'm going to tell everybody about it. And his friend was like, I didn't see anything. I mean, he was adamant. Like he was just like in total denial within the space of the drive back to their,
Oh,
their
wow.
place. And also, I've read stories where people that have been abducted together, one of them will be all excited about it and the other person will be terrified, like I have a totally different memory. They break up as friends, like the traumatized one just can't even be around that person anymore. So very often you'll hear these extreme differences of experience. um, Even with the Pascagoula abduction, the two guys that got abducted while fishing in Mississippi in the 70s, one went to one room and one went to another, and they had very different experiences, and one was way more traumatized than the other. So, very interesting, these abductions with more
Yeah.
than one person.
And it's like, why would they have two different experiences? I mean, if they were the same entity that had taken them, is it because each one of the human um, personalities and how they would react to it or something? You think?
It could be that, it could be something about, I don't know. It could be that, it could be something that they were useful for, you know. Um, because there are many different programs. There's programs where people are being used for breeding and they take semen and eggs and they make babies, right? There's other scenarios where they take blood out of people, which is very traumatizing. Um, There are other scenarios where they show people stuff on screens, like they'll show them nuclear bombs going off and all kinds of scary stuff. The future, they'll say, don't hurt the earth and don't blow up nuclear weapons. And so people have so many varieties of experiences on the ships, whatever they are, the ships. And, um, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, one thing that just popped in my head, you don't remember going into a ship. Do you think something like that, the rooms that you were in were here on Earth?
They could have just been, in another dimension, um, whatever that is. They could have been
Right.
on Earth. They could have. Stephen Greer talks about that a lot. Dr. Greer, he says there are no abductions by aliens. All the abductions, he says, are by the CIA and the human copycat UFO things, and it's a mind control program and a secret breeding program on Earth. With they just have people in alien suits, or they trick you somehow. I don't know what sounds more crazy, that that they're all that, or that they're actually aliens. I mean, I don't know what's going on. All I know is I have NASA relatives, and a lot of people that get abducted have relatives in the military industrial complex or the intelligence or aerospace industry. Some people say that we made deals with aliens back in after World War II, like biology for technology swaps. And so I often wonder, like, did I get put on a list because I have NASA relatives or military relatives? Am I on the it's okay to abduct that person list? I don't
Yeah, but
know.
did I agree to that? Did
I
I
don't know.
agree to
That's
that to be a
and then other people say it's a soul contract. You came here and
yeah.
volunteered. So I don't know. All I know is it's weird and it's very disruptive because once it happens to you, it it eclipses so many other things in your life. That's the bad side. Like the way it takes over your thoughts and your view of everything, and it makes you such a weird person socially. I mean, but you also have certain skills. Like I have skills that people say, "Do you have any superpowers?" I'm like, "No. The only one I have is communicating and meeting other people at parties. I can go to a party or a shoot or whatever, and I will walk right over and sit next to the person that we start talking, and they've had UFO experiences. It happens to me
Oh wow.
all the time, and it makes me feel like it's really common. Now, I don't know if it's that common or if it's just that I have this superpower of being able to go find the right person in the room. Because to me, it just feels like it's super common. Um, but they give me information. I was on set with a girl once. I tell this story, and I brought up the blue beam and whatever. I'm such a big mouth. I'm just ridiculous. And she goes, "Oh, I saw the blue beam in my room. Let's go talk." So we go off and talk. And we're in bikinis. We're on this beach shoot, and it's freezing cold. We're in this little trailer. And this is back in the 90s when this all started, when I could have been in a bikini on a shoot. Not anymore. But back then, so we're talking in our bikinis, and she's like, "Okay, I grew up in Maryland, and my dad was in the NSA, really high up." And I'm already intrigued. I'm like, all ears. And she said,
Yeah.
"Okay, he took me camping when I was a kid, and we built a fire, and we looked up at the sky, at the stars, and we're sitting there at the fire. And he says to me, 'What if I told you that God was an alien, all just a big experiment?'" And I was like, "Whoa, your dad told you that when you were a kid over a campfire?" And she said, "Yeah." And I'm thinking, like, what does her dad know, Mr. NSA? You know? So that was fascinating to me. And that would have never happened, that conversation, if I hadn't opened my big mouth in the trailer full of bikini girls. So I always lean on the side of take the risk, open your big mouth. My husband makes a good living as an astrologer. I don't care. I don't, you know? I mean, there's so many crazy people out there doing crazy stuff as actors in Hollywood. I don't have, I've never been arrested. I've never been an addict. I don't even have tattoos. Like, I'm a normal-ish person, except for the alien stuff. Okay. So they're going to have to deal.
Yeah, I'm like that too. I just throw it out there. And if
No,
they're with it, they're with it. If
I'm
not,
not in
okay,
I'm
well,
not in the cult. I'm not a pedophile. I'm just a normal person. So sue me if I talk about aliens and say I might be wrong.
right.
You know, get over it. I don't care. It's
Yeah.
2025 and I don't care.
I have my opinion, you can have yours. So let's just let it be.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally agree. I'm totally with you. I mean, you're like a mirror image of me because I'm the same way. It's like I talk about all my spiritual stuff. I talk about doing card reads. I talk about, my podcast. Oh, guess what I have? Blah, 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 blah. And some of them look at me like, oh,
Yeah. No, you're
and
never
some
going
of
to
them
make
like,
everyone happy. For the some of the UFO people get upset because I love Jesus and and some of the church people think I'm a crazy person because I'm married to an astrologer and talk about it. I'm like, I don't care. All of you are going to just have to deal with me. This is me.
yeah,
If I'm a walking contradiction, I'm sorry.
yep, it's my truth and this is who I am. So it's
And
me.
I am free to change my mind as I get more information and move through life,
Yep.
you know?
Agree. I totally agree, and I'm starting to learn new things myself. And so I'm going to start changing my ideas about certain things. And it's like, oh, well,
Yeah.
it's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Freedom.
I
All right.
love it.
Well,
I love it.
that's a good place to end. Freedom.
Yeah, I like it. All right. Well, yeah, we'll just end it here. And thank you so much for your information. I mean, what a lot of information, and you have a lot of great contacts that maybe we can get connected with for the show.
Yeah,
And
curious. Anybody who's curious, just go to HollywoodDisclosureAlliance.org. No, .com. No, .org. Ah, .org.
oh,
Either one. .org, I think. Anyway, Hollywood Disclosure Alliance. And look at the list of people on there. We've got some pretty big names on there. We've got UFO people and Hollywood people, and some that are in both categories, like me.
yep. And I've been hearing a lot about those people too. So it would be great to get some of them and tell their stories. It'd be awesome.
Yeah, that's
Be
a good
awesome.
place.
All right. Well,
All
thank
right.
you again for being on the show and sharing your stories.
You're
And
welcome.
if
Take
anybody
care.
else out there has stories to share and would like to tell it on the podcast, absolutely feel free to email me at lighttalk423@gmail.com. And don't forget to click on the like, share, and subscribe buttons down below. And we will talk with you all next time. Thank you. Bye.
Bye bye.